Hey everybody, today you're gonna learn the best way to stain a deck and the biggest mistake to avoid. It's a good one. Let's get started. Because this is a new deck, all we need to do is just give it a rinse. Make sure that it's nice and clean. Now, if you have an old deck, here's what I like to use. You can use a deck cleaner with a scrub brush, a deck brush, or you can use a power washer. That also works really well to clean your deck. Hose it down and then let it dry for a few days. Make sure it's nice and dry. And now we can apply our stain. So preparation is key. I have plants here, so I have them all protected behind some poly, and I have some tape. You can also put some poly on your wall. And I like to start here in the corner with a cut-in brush. And this is how I do it. I'm gonna take my first board, get in on there, and get a good amount of sealant and stain. And I'm just keeping it on this first board. And don't forget the ends, that's very important. Everything has to be nicely sealed. And we're gonna push this into the grain of the wood for our first board. And I like the brush. Do you see how much control I have on that? Now there's really two things you need to look for in a stain. It needs to have UV protection and it needs to protect against moisture. That is so important. So think of your deck stain like a sunscreen for your deck. It's gonna make it last longer and it's gonna delay the graying process of wood. So once you've done your cut-in along the edge of your house or wall, you can move on and do 2 or 3 boards at a time, and you'll notice I'm using my brush. Now, if you have stained a lot of decks, you're gonna know that using a brush is absolutely the best way to stain. Why? Because look I'm getting in every single groove and crevice, and you have so much control. You can push it into the grooves. And of course, if you're a beginner, we're always going with the grain of the wood. So it's this motion, and I like to go left to right. You know why? Because I'm right-handed. It's just easier that way. The second thing you want to look for in your stain is that it is a sealant. The sealant is going to protect you from water damage, from rot, from mildew, and it's going to make your deck last longer. It's also going to prevent your deck from warping and cupping. So the biggest innovation in deck stain is the fact that you are getting a sealant now in with your stain. So I am using a clear stain because a lot of people here like an organic look. But if you are using a semi-transparent stain, you can now get sealants built into your stain. Now, if you're a good observer, you're gonna notice that I'm laying on the stain and then I'm back brushing. It's a back and forward motion, and that's working it into the grain of the wood. Just like when you're painting, you lay on, you lay off, same with stain, but we call it back brushing, and we're pushing it in, laying it on, laying and pushing it back. Uh-oh, this happens. What is that? I got a stray. If you get a stray, this happens, not a big deal. And a pro tip, rag. If you have excess stain, you know your deck can only absorb so much stain. Lightly go over it. We do not want to have any tacky spots or pooling. You know what pooling is? That's coming up. Now, you're gonna ask yourself when you buy your deck stain, why on all the cans does it say penetrating? Well, the latest technology in stains means that the stain can go below the surface of your wood. It's simply gonna last longer. Now, I am not using oil on this deck. I am using a water-based stain sealer, and why that is because this will be safe for children and for pets. We don't wanna be using oil because it's toxic, and most homeowners actually don't want that anymore. Because this is a deck, you're gonna be on this barefoot. So let's speed this up. The great thing about a brush like this is you can remove the head and put it on an extension pole. This is just gonna make application a lot faster. You can see that, you can turn it laterally. It's all about personal preference, but when it comes to staining, I actually like to do it close to the surface of the deck. This for me works fastest. Why? Because I'm right up close and personal with the deck, and I have lots of control. It's fast and it's easy. If you live in a climate with a lot of sun, take a look at this. We already have some cracking happening on the deck. Get a little sealant in that. What you can do to prevent even more cracking is this. Let's check it out. The #1 type of stain is semi-transparent. Let's take a look at my test board here. I always like to do a test board. What you need to keep in mind is more color, more UV protection. So if you live in an area with a lot of sun, that is important to know. This is natural. Now where I live, this is the #1 color right now for decking because people are going natural. Now, whatever color you choose for your deck boards, you want to keep the consistency equal all over your deck boards. Now, what you're going to see and what you're going to try to avoid right here is pooling. And I'm going to go now with a warm brown. That's also a popular selection now. Take a look at what this looks like going on. So I'm gonna get a good amount of stain on here, but what happens when you put too much stain on your deck board? There's something called a saturation point where your deck board is just not gonna absorb any more stains. So what happens? Well, it's gonna stay on the surface of your deck, and that is not good. It's gonna pool and get all glossy. So I'm gonna pick this up, give it a wipe. You don't wanna have anything pooling on the deck board because it's gonna be a high gloss finish on your beautiful deck. Get rid of the excess like that and you'll be good to go. What's the biggest advantage with new deck stains? Well, when it comes time to recoat, all you have to do is wash, dry, and recoat. That means no more sanding, and that is a huge low maintenance time saver. I'm actually doing 4 boards at a time. It's going very fast, and I'm using my rag just to wipe up any excess stain. It's going very fast. So you can see we have some sun on our deck now. We've done a really good job of staining in the shade, which is the best way to do it, but sometimes it is just unavoidable, so do the best you can. If you're staining in the sun, it just means you have to work faster. But that's manageable, right? Did you notice that this entire deck had no face screws? How did we do it? I installed hidden fasteners. You can learn my 7 secrets in this video right here. I'll see you in the next one.